like to welcome everybody to the first episode of the Gamewreckers and Slobberknockers podcast. I'm here with Coach Michael Derry, the defensive coordinator at Fairborn. Coach, thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, Coach.
Hey, like to start off here. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where have you been and systems you've coached in?
I was fortunate enough to be brought on at 19 years old as a varsity assistant up at Tippecanoe High School. I coached under Coach Derry up there for about 4 or 5 years. It was a blessing, the fact that he took a shot on me, being that young, to just kind of show up and be a coach. Up there, I coached inside linebackers and O-line, and he resigned after 5 years of coaching, being a head coach up there, which kind of challenged me to kind of go off on my own. And I knew Randy Kearns, the head coach at Fairborn. I coached with his brother, and we kind of hit it off, and he offered me the defensive coordinator job. So that's where I've been the last 2 years, and I'm going on my 7th year coaching.
So you're, 26 years old?
I'll be 25 in January.
Coach, I've coached longer. I've been coaching longer than you have, but my story's pretty similar. I got hired, a guy named Mickey Hannon hired me at Springfield North as a freshman coach, and I was probably 19 at the same time. And I was coaching freshmen. I was coaching O-line, D-line, linebackers. And I eventually worked my way up. Mickey resigned after the second year. And then our defensive coordinator, Jim Dimitroff, who I love. Jim is a great mentor of mine. Was coaching at Wittenberg University right now. But Jim kept me on, and I worked through, and I ended up being special teams coordinator and defensive coordinator, and I coached there for 7 years. So it's kind of cool coaching my alma mater. So, those guys really kind of got me coaching. So 7 years, man, that's awesome that, that Joel gave you a shot. It's great when those coaches will give young guys shots.
Yeah, and I think it was kind of crazy is how many times people get burned by him and they still are willing to give a young guy a shot, man. I was one of 2 young guys he brought on, and he fizzled out halfway during the year. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of, it's an element of just paying it forward and just still giving people a shot after shot. I wasn't the last one that he brought in as a young gun. And but it was good. I mean, he coached me for 3 years at Greenon where I played, and then my senior year, we got a new head coach, actually off one of Smitherman's guys from Stebbins, and they didn't retain Joel, so he went up to Tippecanoe and landed a DC job up there, and kind of the rest was history. But him and I maintained a pretty good relationship, and enough that he trusted me to help coach O-line and inside linebackers and be his GA for a couple of years.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. I think I've learned more as a young guy when I had to learn how to just, I'm so old. I always tell this to the young guys. I'm so old. We used to break film down by hand where you had to draw the card and you had to write the words out, and, then you had to go back and do it. We didn't have huddle. We were the huddle. That's what we were.
Yeah, I can't even. I was actually listening to Charlie Burbacher talk one day, and he's just like, back in the day, JV coaches on Fridays, they just went out and scouted for us, and they came up on Saturday morning with the scouting report, and that's what we went with.
And and Charlie's old enough. He probably had 16 millimeter film.
Oh yeah.
Like when I first started playing, we would get a couple of those 16 millimeter films. So yeah, that's awesome. Awesome to hear that you've done such a great job in such a short time. Following up on that, who or what has been your biggest influence on your defensive philosophy?
Oh man, I think I'm like a mesh. I try to bring in a lot of stuff that Charlie Burbacher and Joel did at Tip, and kind of mesh it in my own style. There's some certain things that I've changed. I would say I'm a mesh. I do a lot of coverage and alignment that Nick Saban does, and I kind of mesh it into simplifying what Joel and Charlie have done, and kind of made the combination of both of them.
That's cool. I mean, and if anything you get from Coach Saban, I saw him last night, was the Iron Bowl. So they interviewed him on the phone after the game. He said he was miserable at home. I said, I can only imagine, because that guy's pretty intense.
I can't even, dude. Just watching his mannerisms in practice, man. Just And then those are just like YouTube clips. I can't even imagine just like what he's like on a daily basis, man.
Oh,
Like
he
it's a bit,
is.
man. Like I mean, you kind of get like Ryan Day. He's got a personality, but like I can only. I mean, I've watched Urban Meyer coach. I can only imagine freaking Nick Saban worse than Urban Meyer. You know, I mean, Urban Meyer was not a psycho, but I mean, he wasn't very pleasant.
He's a grinder. My sister
Yeah.
was a student athletic trainer when he was when Urban was at Bowling Green, and she said, "Man, he was just ruthless to everybody. You had to do it his way." I actually worked a camp one year when Nick Saban was at Michigan State. Boy, the things I could tell you, it peels the paint off the walls. I mean, he was ruthless. So
I remember.
I was an assistant. I was an assistant coach, a high school coach, an assistant high school coach. And this guy is, I'm like, I don't want any part of this. I want to try to hide out back here.
Mark Antonio was one of my first clinics ever at the state clinic. He was talking, and he had and Toby's kind of said this story too. Roy Toby, it's some of the funniest thing I've ever seen. When Nick Saban, he told the whole Michigan State staff, "Hey, I'm taking the LSU job. Plane leaves at 6 a.m. tomorrow. If you're coming, I expect to see you there at the airport at 6 a.m. No one showed up."
Actually, that is a true story, except for one thing. One guy did show up.
Oh, my God.
Ready for this? Mel Tucker, who's now the head coach at Michigan State, was the only guy that got on the plane. I'll have to tell you the story about that camp because that was Mel Tucker's first year as the GA for Nick Saban. So,
that's crazy how far. Mel Tucker, man, only one that did it.
Right. Okay, Coach. So when you're looking at defending a team, what are you more likely to defend first? The field, the formation, or a player?
Probably the player. I mean, really, I don't really dive into formation and the tendencies until Sunday. Saturday, I kind of like watching the games and just kind of get a feel for them. I think Saturday, I'm really I don't want to put too much together on Saturday game plan wise. I'm generally pretty high or low depending on Friday night, and I'm certainly have no more than 3 hours of sleep from the night before. So it's hard for me to justify putting up a good game plan. But really, I kind of study and see who are they trying to get the ball to.
Right.
And I look for who the best football player is, and I kind of study the line and kind of see if they're trying to run behind a certain people and just kind of go from there. But I'm definitely a player guy. How do I stop their best player?
Cool. Now, I know we play each other. We're usually a Week 10 rivalry, and because of COVID this year, our conference decided we were going to play our rivalries Week 1. I thought that helped you guys out tremendously.
Oh, my God. It did, dude. Dude, when we found out the news, man, we scratched all of our install schedule remaining, and it was Zenith time, man. We had a good two weeks or so of practice going into the week, so it really
right.
2 weeks of practice that we really prepared for you guys, man. And it was funny because we played like crap against West Carrollton, and I about had a heart attack. And it's literally because we didn't do any of our coverages or anything for 3.5 weeks because we were getting ready for Xenia.
Right, and what's hard when you run the triple option is you don't always – people play it differently, and so that's kind of what we're going to delve into here in a second. But I really did. I thought you guys did a tremendous job, especially after Week 10 last year when you guys kind of didn't play as well as you probably hoped.
Mm-hmm.
And we were really, really good. We had a near record year for number of rushing yards in the season. I think we were just over 3,000 yards.
It was insane. It was just talented you guys were.
Right. We had 2 Division I offensive tackles that we would put on the same side of the line sometimes, and the field just sloped that way. So everybody was running downhill.
And it was colder than hell, man, which made that night a whole lot worse.
Every time we play you guys, this is the first year it's not been cold.
Yeah, I mean, the 2 years before that, I just have remembered just being a tip, man. It was pouring down rain and in like the 30s, man. So
it was miserable 2 years ago.
Week 10 in Ohio, man. Never did.
So let's talk about you defending the triple. Now, like I said, you've defended it the triple the past 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
What did you learn from the first year that helped you better prepare for the second year?
Really, I think, and it's kind of weird. We played Beaver Creek in the Jamboree game, and they always went 30 personnel. And so I was able to run my 5.2. I roll down and reduce my fronts and just ball out with it. I mean, we destroyed Beaver Creek. I think they had, in 3 quarters, 62 total yards.
I think that was the first time you guys had beaten Beaver Creek. I thought somebody said
it was a Jamboree game, but we beat them like 6-0.
Right.
3 quarters, man, and they wanted nothing to do with us. Obviously, that's my first game I called. My head big. I come in and, I think I have a really good game plan. I'll never forget texting Fenwick, and we had 8 games of film on you guys, and I said, hey man, I can't wait to play, man. I think I got you guys figured out. And he tried to warn me. He said, hey man, I've coached with Smitherman for X amount of years, and I still haven't figured him out. And I'll tell you what, honestly, the first thing I learned was how difficult it is to defend 31 personnel versus 30 with a 5.2. And what I really struggled was adding an extra hat into the ball. I think the hard thing about the triple option to me, I think from a formation standpoint, angles, the wing tee and the triple option are eerily similar. The difference is the triple option reason, for the most part.
Right.
And I think the hard part about that is trying to accommodate. They have a numbers advantage by default because since they're reading you, they have more blockers blocking other guys. So
right.
My thing is I studied and I spent a lot of time, and I was very fortunate to over quarantine get access to all 22 of Clemson, all their games that they had against Paul Johnson.
Yeah.
And so really, the element was for me is how can I get my 4 best players flowing to the ball? And to me, those were my 2 inside linebackers and my outside linebackers. And so the first thing I did is what I learned was I tried to match up. If you guys run 31 personnel, I tried to come out with a defensive lineman on every single offensive lineman.
Right.
Starting with 2 eyes, sometimes I would shade him to a nose to get him to stop running right up the centers. You know what I mean? He tried to run that hardcore midline.
Yep.
So I try to keep myself honest, but it was 2 eyes, a 4, and a 6, and then 4 on the split inside. And I tried to keep the O-line very, very where they didn't know if he was slanting inside, slanting out, or they were just going to drive forward. And we called it board drill. Toby kind of helped me out with his defense a lot. We meshed what he did up in center, but when they played Fairmont, it made it work with me. So we were able to get into pretty much a 5-4 and a 5-3 against you guys.
Right.
The 5-4 was a mega 5-4. I mean, that was just 5 defensive linemen I could find on the field and just have them do their job and kind of let my outside and inside linebackers just play, man.
And I think that's what's, you talked about the triple and the wing tee kind of causing teams problems. And I think that's what's so unique about them is they're kind of coming back in play. They went away for a while and everybody wanted to be, we're going to be basketball on grass. And we're going to throw the ball here. We're going to throw the ball there. We're going to read this guy. And now all of a sudden you see these teams that are starting to struggle. Chardon, they won a state title here in Ohio running the wing tee. But I tell you what, a lot of times they look like they're running a little bit of triple in there with it. And, they came back and those kids never gave up. They were down and they just kept chipping away at it. And I think, that's what's fun about those offenses is that. So, and then, when you face a true triple team like we are here, you got to stop the midline, you got to stop the inside, and you got to stop the outside veer. So, like, when you are looking at defending a triple team, we're the only triple team you see?
Yeah, besides Beaver Creek kind of went.
Beaver Creek, right?
They gave in. They sold out. They're out in the triple option. Well, I think you guys are the only one in the Dayton area.
Right.
Yeah.
Fairmont still runs. Fairmont.
I didn't think about that. Dave Miller.
But you don't see him because, and I tell you what, Dave doesn't care. Dave,
those guys go unbalanced, man.
right? Hey, he's going to put 7 offensive linemen in the game. He doesn't get like, yeah, I don't have an eligible receiver, so what? Stop the run.
It's funny as heck to watch, man.
Right? Oh, heck yeah, it is. So, how did you come up with a plan on how do you practice defending all 3 options?
Yeah, well, it's really how do I make them? It's kind of one-dimensional. So, to me, if I'm facing a 30 personnel team, I'm going to try to stem my linemen to the strength of the quarterback's hand.
Okay.
To the right. So if he's a right-hander, I'm going to send him to the left, from the defensive side.
Right.
So what that does is it takes away almost outside veer and midline to the tight side or to the right side.
Right.
So you got inside veer, which is fine. On the back side is just a 3 tech. And then my outside linebacker, if I'm going a 5-2, that's when I'm expecting that little quarterback midline follow. I don't know exactly what it's called.
Yeah.
But when they read the 3 technique, if he tackled the dive, the quarterback followed behind.
Yep.
And I know outside view is probably going to come to the field. But now I know the quarterback is playing with his not strength hand.
Right.
I think outside view is the hardest football play in the triple option, man, because it's a wider read. Yeah, you guys, it was a lot easier when you had those 2 tackles.
Yeah.
And you had that wash, you know what I mean?
Right.
And part of the big issue I had is I had an outside linebacker his first rule is the first immediate threat. And 90% of the time it should be the quarterback. But if they're reading you for dive, tackle the freaking dive. And he wouldn't do it. I'll never forget the whole first drive. They kept running outside veer down our throats. So the one thing I did this year is dictate where you could run the ball in certain aspects of it. So I could put that on my scout card, knowing that. So, hey, we're only going to have to defend these 2 plays to this side.
Right.
And not switching my guys. So that way they know what to do and that play is called. And I do the same thing for the wing team, man. I use my alignment to dictate what plays they can run. And now I'm able to put the scout team together and say, hey, they can only run trap to this side. They're going to run power here. They can only run jet here.
So you're teaching more of a concept to them rather than the play. It's like, hey, if you get this, then that.
And just knowing that it's just spending that time in the off season. I'm far from a master, but I understand. I understood the answers to a minimal amount to where, and I can't wait to see what Smitherman gives me next year, man. That's the great part about Jeff, man. I know he's going to come out swinging, and I'm going to have to be able to adjust. But I just kind of knew if I dictated my alignment, I'd spent we put a huge emphasis on it. I think we lost a combined like 86 points in 2 years in a row to Xenia.
Right.
And last year, our main goal, my first year being DC, was beat Xenia. Now, I don't think they took it serious. You know what I mean?
Right.
But at the same time, man, I took it serious, So we really had to I really just studied what Smitherman did. Luckily I had 10 games. I just made sure no one deleted. And I took that personal, man. And I found out you guys were week 1. That kind of helped, because in a short week, I couldn't do what I did. I could have done a dumbed-down version of what I did.
Right.
And I still would have done a lot of it. But how well our kids did it. But I think our kids were going to be ready on a Friday night. It just wouldn't have been as crisp at times.
Right.
But, I think you guys kind of saw firsthand just how clean all our reads were.
Oh, absolutely.
Everything hit well. Our linebackers flowed. It was a blast to watch, man, and our kids bought in. But I think they understood how much, and they fed off how much we studied it. Right. And I think they just bought into it, man. And just giving you guys 3 different looks, I gave you a 5-5, a 5-4, and a 5-3,
Right.
And I threw them in at random times, and I don't think anyone got comfortable. And I think that's the best thing. I'm very anti changing your defense for a specific offense.
Right. Oh, I think when guys do that,
I knew what I was doing because I studied that defense. I'm very big. If I'm just going to put random guys there and I'm unsure of, but everyone knew their rule, right, and everyone knew their key. And I think you can change your defense if you truly 100% know what's going on, and you got a staff that understand and buy in. And we were able to change because that was by far. I was running a 4-4 probably 60% of the time, man. That was kind of what was working. I really wanted to run that 5-3 a little bit more. And I said, man, our 4-4 is going so well, man, until they figure out how to defend that, you know?
Well, and I think, something you said there was not changing, your defense just to come up with some gimmick if you don't know your answers. If you don't know the answers, I guarantee you the other guy over there has already seen it. That's why, you face the triple or the wing T. If you try to do something that's not in your toolbox, you don't know what the answer is, and I absolutely think you guys knowing getting 3 weeks to prep for us was a huge
we weren't. I'll put it this way: we weren't doing. I think we were going to play extremely well that game,
right?
Regardless, I think our kids were ready. It was week 1. We knew that you guys were going to have your first week fumbles.
Yep.
That
especially with remember, nobody had any scrimmages. So us not being able to scrimmage, we didn't get a chance to work that out.
And the best part about it was we had 2 or 3 players that joined the team that you guys probably had no idea about. We had a kid return a punt that was a sophomore that didn't play the year before. That was a good player. We had a free safety for us that was a sophomore that was a heck of a player for us. You know what I mean? We were able to we had a kid that was ineligible last year. Was probably our 3rd best linebacker. So we were able to kind of we had a lot of things going our way, and we made it week 1, and, our kids sold out. But I think you cannot run a gimmick offense. And what irks me to death is when I see people with a triple option try to put a ton of people on the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you got to give yourself, I always try to give myself 4 secondary guys, whether they'll be linebackers or that free safety that sat at 7 yards. You know what I mean? That kind of can clean up any mistake. I would recommend that aspect of it. But to me, really, all I planned on doing was running a 5-2. There's 30 personnel and a 5-3 against 31 personnel.
Right.
And I had that extra couple weeks that Toby was able to help me put a 4-4 defense in.
Right.
And we were able to put that in.
And having the 2 times Southwest District Division II Defensive Player of the Year doesn't hurt you at all.
It doesn't. And that dude's a beast, man. That dude made me look better than I can only imagine, man. This dude makes plays that, I don't even teach, and I just laugh because it's just like people thinking I'm like some kind of genius, and I'm like, you guys are just so wrong. This guy's a beast, man. And we had another inside linebacker that was maybe not as good, but he was.
He wasn't terrible. Now let's not kid yourself.
He had 130 tackles the year before too. So, and those guys are Fairborn dudes, and they wanted to win, and it meant. I think the best part about the Xenia-Fairborn rivalry, man, is it means it's just a different kind of rivalry. I think last year it being competitive. Now, in my opinion, I don't think it should have been as competitive as it was. We kind of got screwed into some situations that I still a little upset about.
The 99-yard
returns for a touchdown, or some double reverse pass. Hey, by the way, was that open against Winton Woods? I know you guys tried it. I was calling that out on TV when I was watching you guys.
Right.
Well, said, 9's in the slot. Here comes that reverse pass.
I don't know because I was too busy watching him bobble the ball on the ground to see if it was open.
Yeah, the camera followed. I was like, I wonder if that worked. That was. I said we were dominating the whole game. We just couldn't get going offensively, and all of a sudden we're down 14-0 at half. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here, man? So, but and kudos to you guys. You guys had a lot of injuries, and you guys kept fighting hard. I can't imagine how scary Xenia is going to be next year. You guys got to return a lot, and you're going to be athletic as heck.
Well, we hope to be that way. Yeah. So, like I said, I thought, some of your things you talk about of being able to have a plan for what they do. If a team's a midline team, I know the one thing when I was a DC and we were facing a triple option team, we would start about 3 or 4 weeks out, just 5 or 10 minutes a week, working the option part of it because the guys aren't used to being read, as much as they are in the triple. So they got to figure out, oh, wait a minute, this guy comes down, I got to do this. So
how downhill it is too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If a quarterback misses a read and he just hands it off, if your D line doesn't get used to squeezing and tackling the dive, man, that can pop for 50, 60 yards, man.
Right. It's really quick because especially I like the midline for that reason, because if you miss, he's on the safety, and the safety's like, I don't want to tackle that guy.
No, I mean, it happens so fast. No, and I will say, no matter what, I think one thing I'll never probably go away from is if I go from a 5-2, 5-3, kind of what I did. I came out in a 5-3. That nose two gap.
Yep.
Or that double A gap, man, is causing some real issues for triple options.
Oh yeah, it does, because you're going to take away somebody that if your guard misses, there's problems.
Yeah, and in all seriousness, second or third play of the game, Smitherman tried to run midline right up to center, and we had that Southwest Player of the Year guy made a heck of a read. You know what I mean, and tackled that right away for a 2-yard gain. That, you know what I mean, just
yep.
But you got to coach that, and you got to coach that, and you got to coach that. So that way, you make it look like it's not there, even though it was there. And that was I came out rocking double two eyes, and I was just shocked to see him go after it that early.
Right.
It shows me how smart he is and how well he sees the field.
Right. He knows the answer. As soon as you do it, he knows what his answer is.
I'll never forget. The most humiliating thing going into week 10 last year is I'm like, all right, I got this, and if this doesn't work, I got these sweet gap exchanges. He has no idea. And anyway, man, I go, okay, all right, the gap exchange work, and I'm like, this guy doesn't want it, man. I'm young. I'm talking a little crap to Smitherman. And I said, you know what? After the next play, it was like a 3-yard gain. I said, we're going to do this gap change again. And you guys did that pipe block and just hammered my inside linebacker scraping. And I said, oh, dear God. After that, I really didn't have any other answers, man.
Right.
It really was, if you got an annoying triple option team on your schedule, I would recommend taking an entire offseason and just studying it. Not obviously not every day, but really put an emphasis on it. I mean, obviously, the magnitude of our game changes the complexion of things. Beating Xenia is an expectation. It's what we want. That's what the community wants. We don't. It's a good rivalry, man. So,
and it's that way. It's not just football. It's that way in every sport. Baseball, basketball. I mean, I've seen some pretty heated basketball games.
So, just trying not to. Honestly, man, my goal was not to ever be humiliated like that again.
Right.
Being in the cold, honestly, was the most humbling thing that's ever happened. Smitherman humbled me up more than anything in the world. And we had a heck of a defense that year. My first year being a DC, I was on cloud 9. Not really after the West Carrollton game, but I was really feeling good about what I was gonna do, and having Smitherman have more answers than me. That was the first time I ever got out coached in my career. And that
hey, it happened early, so now you learned.
On TV, in front of my mentor who's up in the box, and then my former O-line coach at the DC on the other side. So
right.
I had 2 former coaches watching this, so, and it was really just a humbling experience, but I really thought we were going to compete, and, I got out coached, man. I got out leverage. I got out flanked, the whole 9 yards, man. And so just studying how the triple option teams. But to me, I always thought going into it, just studying how Xenia and how triple option teams attack certain alignments.
Right.
And, okay, this is their answer, and just kind of get a broader understanding of what they're trying to do so you can make quicker adjustments.
Right.
Like, just when I think Smitherman, and I think one thing I did well is when Smitherman starting to make his adjustment, I came out with a different look.
Right.
And maybe that wasn't the answer to the adjustment, but it complicated things a little bit more. I mean, I'll tell you what, it was insane, and this is kind of how jacked up I was when we had that strip sack inside the 10.
Oh, yeah.
That was the first time Smitherman did not throw the ball, but 2 times on the minus side of the field
right.
the year before. And this dude jacked it up 1st and 10 inside the 10. So, I mean, knowing I had him a little flustered, and really I tried to man up my cornerbacks. If you guys would have caught one pass, you guys would have won the game. I mean, our guys couldn't cover man-to-man.
Right.
We got bailed out by people dropping passes. But, there was other times I forgot all about it being in the playbook because that little sugar huddle, fast huddle, empty set. You hide the freaking tight end at the tackle spot.
Hey, now, don't give away all the secrets.
Are you freaking serious? They did that at Stebbins, man. I'd never seen him run it at Xenia. I forgot all about it. I didn't have any film of it. And then the reverse pass he's done at Stebbins before. I tried to get a timeout in, but Kearns was talking to the offense. Anytime you put a backup quarterback in, and how I knew he was the backup was because he had to come in.
Right. He was our starting outside linebacker.
Yeah. Oh, he was a beast. Yeah, I remember Cole English had his helmet taken off, I think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, on a tackle. So number 9 came in the game, which he started the year before anyways at quarterback. So.
Right.
So then when I saw him in the slot, oh, that's not normal. Kearns, I need a timeout. And then by the time he heard me, the play happened.
And well, that's one of those rules, and I'm going to get a little officiating here. He should, the head coach should be able to say, myself and this and that coach can call timeout. Because you can't just, the head coach may not always be available because he's talking to the offense.
Well, that's just like, I literally called timeout to the ref, and he's like, you're not the head coach. I'm like, Kearns, timeout. And the play happened, man. I was like, all right. I'm a little scared to be a head coach. I don't think any sideline – if you've been a sideline official for a Fairborn game the last 2 years, they don't like me. Put it that way right now.
Hey,
they don't.
That's why I enjoy being in the press box now, is I don't have to talk to those guys. I can say whatever I want about them and not worry about getting a flag.
I'm a loudmouth too, and I'm deaf. I'm half deaf, so I probably talk louder than my whisper is probably normal conversation, man. I mean, I there's some times I'm just like, dude, are you serious right now? Like, what kind of call is that? He turned around and goes, stay in your lane. I said, yeah, okay. I'm back. You gonna tell me to get back while you're at it?
Hey, that's their job. They're the get back guys. They're not worried about what's going on the field. All right, Coach. Are there any other offenses that you hate to defend, or do you have a play that you hate to defend?
Honestly, I think the hardest play in the world to defend, and I hate saying this out loud, but it's rocket. When you get a good downhill rocket play, especially when you run into triple well, I think it gives the running back good vision, and it really stretches your alley players to make it play. And
for sure.
I'll never forget. I thought we had to stop my first year coaching against you guys, a 4th and 6 on the right hash, and you guys ran rocket left to our field. That was like your 4th and medium go-to play last year. I called it out. Our players were calling it out, and you guys got like 15 yards on
it. We had better players. That was all. That was the only difference. We just had better players.
Corner bit inside, and that Kevin Johnson guy was a stud. He had 1,000 yards, and 100 carries last year. So, so I think running rocket and teaching your alley players. I think when you defend the triple, you got to do everything in collaboration for Indy.
Right.
And I think defending the triple is such a fun aspect to it because it's a unity thing. It's everyone doing their job and making sure that there's a team aspect to it, that I got your back. Like our 2 inside linebackers, you're either flow or you got cutback. Our outside linebackers, you have cutback or you have pitch. Or if he insert blocked, then you got spilled. So our linebackers, I took over linebackers. Toby took over the free safeties. And then we had our safety coach corners and just do man-to-man stuff. But, we did everything. We do like a 15-minute indie period, and the free hitters would be right behind the linebackers doing the keys. You know what I mean? Like, boom, boom, go. Boom, boom, go. So making sure that you get as many reps as you can in practice. We always defend the triple option on air.
We called it, when we did that, we called it the no ball option period.
Mm-hmm. Yep, no ball, making sure we just have trash cans and just making sure that you're defending everything that you need to defend, making sure they're going to their assignment. And then we mashed that up with inside run. And then on one half of the field, we were lucky to have this many coaches, and the practice schedule structured the way it was. I ran inside run, Toby ran perimeter, but the linebackers and the free safety were getting extra work.
Right.
And then halfway through, we switch, and now they're working on getting block interior wise and seeing it, and it is really good. So make sure you structure your practice schedule that way. And again, if anyone has any questions, they're more than welcome to follow me on Twitter or get my email address. And once you post this link, I'll drop that in the comments. So that makes sure that people know that I have probably diagrams and specific rules that I'm not going to give Coach Smitherman. Exactly. He's smart enough. He can figure it out himself.
Oh, trust me, I'm sure he is spending a load of time on you guys because we were pretty burned after that one because we thought we were going to perform a little better. Now, I was told to ask you about defending the hook and ladder. They said you have the secret on defending the hook and ladder.
Oh man, the tackiest playing football, man. There was a lot of things that went wrong. I mean, it was just a bad luck of a year of Fairborn football, but I'll never forget, man. We got down 17-0. They scored the first 3 drives. Sydney did, baby. And I said, oh my God, this is embarrassing. And then we held them tough all the way until 8 seconds left. Like 56 yards, they scored a hook and ladder.
I won't tell you who told me to ask you about that one. But I was
crying, man. I'm a competitor, man. I was like, this is embarrassing.
Hey, was it
a comeback route?
Was it that? Is that play worse or the one where we have the sugar huddle explosion play? Which one's worse?
Honestly, the hook and ladder, because I would more PO to myself for not remembering that from tip, because that happened. That honestly, my first year coaching, that was my job. Was that exact situation? That huddle is to tell our play side safety to take that seam away, and let you guys complete it for an 8-yard gain.
Right.
And I was going nuts, and our freaking safety missed the tackle. So, but that was my job. I literally remember everything about that play at tip, but like 5 years later, man,
you totally forgot.
It was like a 4th and 9 or 4th and 10. And, but it worked out. You guys, your quarterback was getting ready to walk into the end zone, and his knee popped the football out by himself right in the end zone. So it thank God it worked out, man, because that won the game for us, man, right there.
Right.
So,
right. You guys kept you guys in the game. We didn't get to go up 2 scores.
Yeah, and just making sure you guys install belief in your guys, man. I think, and that comes obviously through trust, and there's a whole element of just building belief and trust. But, I think there was an element where our kids knew what we were going to do was going to work. I think that was the most important aspect of it. And I think we went down 14-0. I think we knew we were still going to win that game. For the first time, I think, in Fairborn's in the last decade, that they truly thought they were going to win the game, no matter what that circumstance was. Like there was that, the year before we got down 14-0, and it'd be hit or miss. I mean, we had a couple comebacks, but we also had a couple games where we just folded. So, I think that was the turning point where that was the only game, the first game that they felt a part of, that no matter what. And it set the tone for the year. But I think that was, that was confidence. I think they felt prepared going into that game. And that's because there was constant communication. And I think the best part that what I did and Coach Toby did help is communicate that to our staff, keep the verbiage the same. So everyone was saying the same thing. You know what I mean? There wasn't any contradicting remarks that maybe are the same, just a slightly different terminology. And really, I think going against the triple option, man, it's just simplifying your verbiage and just getting as many. Forget Indy. I mean, we did a little bit of tackling circuits like we always do, but we did as many group periods as we could. And in all seriousness, I think you should do that anyways. But
especially once you get into the season, I always tell them I only need like 5 minutes individual, then we can group up and get stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
Because it matters.
Sure. Really, the outside and inside linebackers, and we're able to do formation recognition and working on strong arming and spilling. That's when we started seeing improvements. I think, because like we played West Carrollton the next week, and we had a guy not wrong arm, and we gave up 2 long touchdown runs that should have never happened. Should have been a 2-yard gain.
Right.
And then the week after, or not the week after, we played Stebbins. They tried to run power, and we didn't want to wrong arm it. But we wrong armed it, but our inside linebackers didn't trust that they were going to do it, so we didn't spill, and ended up being like an 8 or 9. I mean, it was a cluster until we started getting more group periods.
Right.
Honestly, our best games was when we did a lot of group periods anyways. So.
Cool. All right, well, we're almost finished up here. I got a couple questions left. Okay, so we wouldn't be able to call this the Gamewreckers and Slobberknockers podcast if we don't talk about them. So who is the best Gamewrecker that you've ever coached?
What do you mean by game walker?
A Gamewrecker is a guy that's going to screw up the opposing offense's game plan. They've got to make a plan for that guy, because if not, he's going to be Ravion Hargrove.
That dude was unreal, man. I've never seen a high school football player that way. Right. A close second is Andre Gordon, the best quarterback I think I ever faced. Right. That dude could do anything he wanted on a football field. But Ravion Hargrove, I've never. Being 5'3" and doing what he did, man. Probably a little taller, but.
Right. Okay, so what's the biggest Slobberknocker hit you've ever seen as a player or a coach?
Honestly, the best hit I've ever seen in person was actually week 10 against you guys last year. You guys ran a rocket play, and that Division II Southwest Player of the Year guy rocked your running back.
Oh, yeah.
Really, yeah. I was like, oh, you know what I mean? That was like the only kind of life. And I'll never forget it, man. He looked right at me, and he goes, we'll change the score next year. But that was about as good a hit I've ever seen at the high school level. I think if I could probably go back, there's probably some NFL hits that I'm blessed enough to be old enough to be able to watch Sean Taylor play a little bit of football.
Right.
So he had some hits that just wowed you. But seeing it in person is a whole different ball game. So I think that's probably the best high school hit I've seen.
Cool. Okay, we're going to finish up here, and it's called Bring in the House. Like you're blitzing it. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions.
All right.
Real quick, immediate response is all you get. All right, so first one, favorite defensive player of all time?
Ed Reed.
Favorite football movie of all time?
Friday Night Lights.
What's your favorite defensive call, the one you're going to call if you need it?
We're going to go under front with a backside A-gap blitz.
Favorite breakfast cereal?
Ooh, Cocoa Puffs.
Cocoa Puffs. All right, Coach, last one. Crocs or slides?
Crocs, man. I rock Crocs every Saturday and Sunday. If I'm not coaching, man, I'm in and out of the building in Crocs. Get a lot of hate for it, but they'll catch on later on in life.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks, Coach Derry. I appreciate you being on the first Gamewrecker and Slobberknocker podcast. Really enjoyed you talking about how you defend the triple option. If any of my listeners want to be on the podcast, you can contact me through Twitter at Coach_Bartley, and we can find a time for you to come on and talk ball. Hope to have you back next time when we'll be talking about linebacker play with Coach Horton from Cincinnati Hughes High School. Thanks, everyone.